What if the most terrifying part of war wasn't the battle itself, but what came after? In the ashes of conquered cities, the Mongols didn't just celebrate victory, they turned it into ritual, oaths sealed in blood, punishments designed to break the soul, and traditions so ruthless, they blurred the line between discipline and terror. Nishapur was only the beginning. What they did next is where the real story begins. The city of Nishapur didn't fall quietly. It burned, it screamed, and then it vanished. When the Mongol army finally stood victorious in 1221, they didn't just claim the land, they erased it. Every man, every woman, every child was hunted down. Their heads were severed and stacked into 3 towering pyramids, separated by gender and age, as if even in death, order had to be maintained. And when the streets fell silent, they released dogs into the ruins, not to scavenge, but to search, to find anyone still breathing, anyone still hiding, anyone foolish enough to hope they had survived. But Nishapur wasn't an exception. It was a message. To understand why, you have to go back to what happened before the first arrow was ever fired. Before battle, Mongol warriors gathered in tight circles beneath the open sky. No armor clashing, no war cries yet, just silence and ritual. Each man drew a blade and sliced open his palm. Blood spilled freely, not wasted, but collected into a shared bowl filled with fermented mare's milk. Ira, thick, bitter, sacred. One by one they drank. This wasn't just tradition, it was a contract, a promise sealed in blood that no man would flee, no man would hesitate, no man would betray the brotherhood standing beside him. Because once you drank from that bowl, your life no longer belonged to you. It belonged to the army, to the Khan, to the code that ruled them all. Genghis Khan didn't build his empire on chaos, he built it on absolute control. His law, known as the Yasa, demanded loyalty without question, and it left no room for weakness. In this world, courage wasn't admired, it was required. And failure didn't just bring shame, it brought consequences far worse than death in battle. Because if a warrior broke that oath, if he ran, if he hesitated, if he chose survival over loyalty, the punishment was inevitable. Not from the enemy, but from his own brothers, and it would not be quick. Because under Mongol law, spilling the blood of an oathbreaker onto the ground was forbidden. Blood was sacred when it was given willingly, but when it was taken as punishment, it had to disappear without a trace. So execution took a different form, a slower form, one that forced the condemned to face the full weight of his betrayal. They were suffocated, sometimes with a tightly drawn cord, sometimes beneath heavy felt, pressed down until breath became memory. No spectacle, no shouting, just a quiet, deliberate ending. And the men carrying it out, the same ones who had stood shoulder to shoulder with him hours earlier, the same ones who had shared the bowl, the oath, the bond. In that moment, loyalty demanded something colder than mercy. This is what made the Mongol army unstoppable. It wasn't just their speed or their tactics or the fear they spread across continents. It was the system behind them. A structure where every man knew the cost of failure and the price of hesitation. There were no second chances, no room for doubt, only obedience. And when that kind of discipline met the chaos of war, the result was devastating. Cities didn't just fall, they were unmade. Entire populations erased, not out of rage, but out of calculated purpose. The rituals after victory weren't random acts of cruelty. They were warnings, carefully crafted messages sent across the world without words. Surrender and you might live. Resist and everything you know will disappear. Nishapur was one of those messages. The pyramids of heads weren't built in madness. They were built with intention. Each one a signal to the next city, the next ruler, the next army that dared to stand in their path. This is what happens when you defy us. This is what remains when you lose. Stories of Mongol victories traveled faster than their horses. Fear spread ahead of them, weakening enemies before a single arrow was released. Some cities opened their gates at the mere rumor of their approach. Others tried to fight and paid the price. But behind all of it, Behind the brutality, the rituals, the silence that followed their conquests was something colder than violence. Control, a system so absolute that even death was governed by rules, where loyalty was enforced not just through fear of the enemy, but fear of your own brothers, where victory wasn't the end of war, it was part of a larger design. And that's the part history rarely shows, because it's easy to remember the battles, the dates, the names. It's harder to face what came after, the rituals, the choices, the silence left behind. The Mongol Empire didn't just conquer land, it reshaped what it meant to win. Lessons for us from this history. 1. The danger of blind loyalty in the name of discipline. The Mongols used to bind their warriors with their blood. Even in the modern era, it is often seen that excessive blind loyalty to an ideal or institution makes people ignorant. Education. Discipline is necessary, but when it destroys individual freedom or humanity, it is no longer discipline, it becomes terror. 2. Fear versus respect. The Mongols wanted to conquer people by showing fear, not by respect. The Nikapur headstones were a symbol of fear. Education. It is possible to temporarily subdue someone by using fear, but to build something lasting, morality and mutual respect are needed. Even today, this is a big warning for those who want to control in the workplace or in society by showing dominance. 3. Accountability versus cruelty. As seen in the script, the person who broke the oath was killed by his own brothers. Accountability is very necessary in modern teamwork or corporate culture, but if its form is strict, like that of the Mongols, it takes away the innovative power and courage from people. Education. True leadership is not about harsh punishment for failure, but creating an environment to learn from failure. 4. Psychological war and its impact. Psychological impact of messaging. The Mongols did not only fight, they sowed the seeds of defeat in the minds of the enemy before the war. Nowadays, social media or mass media can also be seen creating panic in the minds of people through any wrong message. Education. Before accepting any information or message, it is important to understand the purpose behind it. Just as the Mongols used propaganda as a weapon, we should also be aware of information or propaganda today.